right. Well, I'm really glad to share this experience with you, and I hope that you'll figure out ways that you can scale it or adapt it to whatever kind of courses you want to use it in. I thought what I'd do is give a little background about what the course was, talk about my specific assignment, and take you under the hood a little bit with Wikipedia with a concrete example. So I'll try to be really fast and just fly a whole bunch of things in front of you, and you could always ask me afterwards if you had questions. So the course background is just useful to know that this is an upper level course. I limited to 35 students. It's majors take it in Scandinavian Studies and in Celtic Studies. There's a certificate and there's students there. But it fills in like a heartbeat because it's kind of a cult course that they've got tattoos and, and they're Viking enthusiasts and or Irish enthusiasts, and it's about the struggles between Vikings and Irish during the medieval period. So it's kind of the students are extremely interested in being there, but nobody is going to go on to become a medievalist. That's not what I'm trying to get students to do. Maybe some of them will want to, but they'd have to learn Old Norse and Old Irish and so forth. So 100% of the things that I'm trying to teach are transferable skills. They're about how do you understand a past culture, how do you communicate effectively, how do you work in a team, and how do you learn to read critically using medieval materials, most of which are completely obscure to them before they've taken the course. So my students have certain assets to begin with. There's enthusiasm. I don't have to worry about them saying, I hate this course, because they wake up in the morning and they tell their friends, wow, we're reading this, and now I understand what Tolkien was about. And there's a wealth of ancillary knowledge and skills. They played computer games about Vikings, or they've watched these Tolkien movies 1,000 times, and so they're extremely knowledgeable about certain things that I can kind of harvest and bring into the classroom. They have considerable research and writing skills because they tend to be seniors or juniors by this point that they get in. They have formidable familiarity with Norse and Celtic gaming cultures, but they have deficits. They have an unfaithful health in the quality of information on Wikipedia. They think it's fact, right? A lot of people do. There's a lack of consciousness regarding Wikipedia bias and how very slanted the stuff on Wikipedia can be. And then they have an inability to see their writing as a product for consumers. And this assignment tries to get them to see their writing as product. And to make that something, because immediately when they put it into Wikipedia, they have an audience and they're interacting with readers. And here they are, undergraduates, doing that. So the assignment I have them do is has some parameters. They have to form a team, and they have to join Wikipedia, propose an intervention, which is a correction. It should come out to, they can do a series of corrections, but it should come out to about a long paragraph is what I'm saying they should do, all told in text. They carry out that intervention, that correction, and then they take a screenshot of it and they download that or they upload that to a Dropbox. And that's really important, why I want them to do a screenshot. I give them some clear examples at the beginning. We spend some time talking about it. I don't ask them to do a full page. I don't ask them to invent the wheel. It's a small intervention or set of interventions they do. And then I try to keep the guidance, the hand-holding, as minimal as possible, because Wikipedia works by people learning how to do it with each other. And if they can be doing it, seniors at the University of Wisconsin can learn to do it, and probably better than I can, right? So I take them through my login, and they see how to do it, and this is my username. And I just put up this image from Silicon Valley, if you've watched that really hilarious movie, about TV series about the students form teams so as to diversify their skills. They do this naturally. They say, about 4 weeks into class, they say, this person's really good, she's read everything, and he's really techie, and this guy knows a lot of stuff. And so they form teams that are skills-based, whereas at the beginning of the course, they'll be sitting with their friends, and they sit with people who they know from whatever other circumstances. So it actually, you see people making new friendships through the assignment. There are pitfalls to the issue there's a potential to get burned or banned. So you put something up and you think this is really good, and someone immediately takes it down. You say, what the? I just did that. That's why I make them do a screenshot. So they're not worried about their assignment getting credit for it. And it's important to realize that Wikipedia doesn't favor originality. So my students at the senior year, they think, I have this brand new idea, I'm going to put it up on Wikipedia. That's not what Wikipedia is about. It's about established, provable things that are already accepted as fact. It's an encyclopedia, right? So you have to kind of get students to think in that way, that they have to show things that are established facts. So here's my concrete example, and then you'll be able to move on to things. Do you know this product? Do you know this? Yes? Do you know whose harp that is? Whose harp? Okay, see, an Irish person was that's Brian Boru's harp. Brian Boru is a famous character who is involved in the Battle of Clontarf that is supposedly the end of the Viking dominance of Ireland. Not really, and as we learned in the thing. But anyways, that's a story. And Brian Boru is this kind of legendary character and ancestor of the Kennedys. So he has a connection to the American presidency. And the way that we know anything about him happens to be from this very obscure medieval text called Koga Regalev. So almost nobody has ever heard of that. But my students, for the short time of the course, become world experts on Koga. So here's the page that Koga, that some of my students end up adding to over time. And everything I've circled are things that my students have created over time, over the number of years that I've done this assignment. So this very page was created by the students, but then they've added to different parts of it, and they've added elements. And one of the things that you can see that there's a kind of an overview of the text, and then it was really dry. And one of my students said, "Well, I'm going to take those really wacky lists of adjectives that's in Koga about just before the battle. They're describing the two sides in these really absurdly flowery ways, so they said, I'm going to quote that I'm going to make that intervention. So people who've never know this text get a flavor for what it is. So they have there the brave, valiant champion, soldierly, active, nimble, bold, full of courage, quick, doing great deeds, pompous, beautiful, aggressive, hot, strong, swelling, bright, fresh, never weary, terrible, valiant, victorious heroes and chieftains and champions and so forth. And you can see the bad guys and all the words that are used for them. It's really fun, and when somebody who's never read Koga, they get a little better feeling for what they're doing. Now, one of the interesting things about Wikipedia, as you're checking what your students have done, is that you can always go to View History, that little button, and it lets you go behind and see everything that's been changed on that page over time. And this is one of my students. You can always tell that this is happening around Thanksgiving break. That's when they have to get it done by the end of Thanksgiving break. And so you'll see in these different pages that there's always things late November, and I can always find where my students. So here's Ocean Girl, and this was actually a group of two women who did this thing, and they had a number of contributions where they were kind of twiddling with it in some ways. And what you can do with Wikipedia is you can select this one and the one immediately before it, and if you select those two, you can then compare the selected versions, and it will show you exactly what the student put in. So you can look exactly at what the group did. So there we have she actually put in the manuscripts that is where we have this text, and that's really important for medievalists to understand what manuscripts were used. And you can also sometimes find that here's that little background of burning that one of my students had put in information about the 4 provinces of Ireland and how that related to the text. And this guy, Scolare, came in and completely threw it out. So if he had taken my course, he would have known that the 4 provinces of Ireland are really important in this text. But and that really what the text is doing is trying to make Munster this very obscure corner of Ireland that is kind of impoverished and has never produced anything great, except that my mother's from there. As great as the north of Ireland, which is where all the heroes were in Cuchulainn and so forth. So there is this part, but this guy, Scolare, whoever he is, just said, no, that's not my understanding of Koga. So he removed the item. You can also see a little bit later, Scolare comes in, and one of my students put in the Guinness logo as related to Brian Boru. They put that little fact in, and he removed that too. Guinness logo is irrelevant, he said, right? So I kind of agree with him on that one. I tell my students that. I think it's kind of interesting. But does it have to be in the Wikipedia page? No. This one really should have been, but he removed both of them. One of the interesting things is that you can, with these kind of pedants who hover around a page over time, a lot of times they will put up a page about themselves on Wikipedia, and so he does, this guy, and so I can find out he's Peter from Dublin, and he's in his late 50s, and this is what he spends his, afternoons after a beer, so, tinkering on these things, and so he's got his biases too, right? One of the interesting things to understand is that you can also look at the page statistics. So this is how I underscore to the students that things are relevant. None of you knew what Koga was, that medieval text, right? We all have PhDs, right? In the last 30 days, that text has been viewed by 377 viewers. So that really is kind of compelling to see in the last 30 days. Right? So that's pretty impressive, and you can find this out and help students see that significance. This, I point out, is a really important statement from Wikipedia about the male bias of the product. It's being done by people like Scolare, who's got time on his hands and doesn't have a date. And that's what he's speaking. In this page, they list the important characters, but there's none of the female characters listed. So here's a way you could intervene. About 2/3 of the students who take the course at any time are women. So let's find some ways to do that. In the course, we talk a lot about Gormla, who is a female character. She actually incites the Battle of Clontarf. And so why not have a page about her? So my students created that page over time, and a lot of other people have added to it, and added pieces this way and that. And that page in the last 30 days has been visited by 700 people. So that's pretty exciting for students to see that they could make a difference in Wikipedia. They could change the thing. So improving Wikipedia and student writing one page at a time.